watching the Forefront Church video podcast. And wherever you're at viewing online, we just want to say thank you and welcome. And one of the ways that we can help connect with you is we want to hear from you and where you're at and how we can help. And so head over to forefrontchurch.info after the message and click the Connect tab. It's a great way for us to help you along your spiritual journey as you connect with God and learn about Jesus. And so sit back, relax. We hope that you're challenged and encouraged from today's message. Good morning, everybody on Facebook Live, 10 a.m. How are we doing today? We're doing good today, man. I'm excited. Thank you guys so much. I know parking it changes every week. It's going to change again next week as we've been prepping because you guys like to procreate. And so we need more space for kids. And so we have a family ministry center that's going to be going up right there in front, right next to this building. And so parking's going to change. Just thank you for being patient as we do that. Man, it's just been cool to watch, and that's just a tool to be able to share God's love, God's hope with other people as we are, like this series say, be a church for our city. And you guys displayed that last week in your commitment to God, and God was using you. God decided of all the things he could do to share his love with people. He goes, you know what? I'm going to use people that are messed up and broken, and they go out and share my love, and people go, man, God must love me because look at this person. Why would they ever love somebody like me? And last week you guys did that. It announced like, hey, we're partnering with the city of Virginia Beach and social workers in Aid Now, as we have a program that's happening here, two of them, one for like all the kids that are here and another program just for kids that are either homeless, displaced, or on the verge of that. And so you guys picked up all 100 kids to provide them with what they need for Christmas. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for trusting God and saying like, all right, I'm going to do that. And here's the cool part is not only that, it's inspired other people to get on board. And so every kid, Food Lion has been very generous, and through their program, Food Lion Feeds, every kid is going to get a box of food. Not every family, every kid. And so if a family has 7 kids, they get 7 boxes of food that they're going to be able to take away from that. And so we're super thankful for Food Lion and the program that they have. You guys can give it up for them. It's just neat to see that. And the social workers have kind of come back and said, hey, we have all these parents that are going to come and be a part. And then, what are the miscellaneous kids that might come along the way? So no problem. We'll add some more bags. And so last service, I said, hey, we got like 40 plus bags out there that extra for like the moms and dads and care for them. And so now there's only like 15 left, I think. And so after service, I'd encourage you to stop by there. If you missed your chance, you don't have to. You have it today. If you just go, man, I didn't miss my chance, but I want to feel extra generous, that's awesome too. I love the fact that we can live out the very thing we've been teaching and preaching on, and you guys just prove that time and time again, that you are about other people and not yourselves. And so as your pastor, I want to tell you thank you for living that out, because that's not always the case for churches, and it's just an honor to watch the way God's using you guys. And so before we jump into today's message, I want to pray for wherever you've landed, and wherever you're thinking, maybe you're new to church and this is your first time here and you're like, oh my gosh, this is very overwhelming. Or maybe you had experience with church before and you're like, this is not what I anticipated church to be. That's okay. I want to pray for all of us that we're receptive and ready for what God has in store. So why don't you pray with me? God, I thank you for today. We thank you that you love us, that you meet us exactly where we are. For some of us, that means that we're unsure of whether or not you're real and whether or not you exist. And I'm glad for everybody tuning in online and here that is a part of that lands in that spot. God, I'm also thankful for those of us in the room who may be searching and just have a lot of questions and insecurities. God, I'm also thankful for the people that have kind of staked the claim that they love you and they believe in you, but sometimes struggle to live it. We're all, every single one of us, aiming ourselves towards you and asking questions, and it's okay. But this morning, God, we ask that you would take every bit of our questions, our doubts, our fears, our insecurities, so that we can hear you fresh for the first time ever, or maybe the first time in a long time, to live out what it means to care for other people. God, we love you and we thank you. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Now, I want to have a little exercise with us this morning. You guys online can jump in as well. Now, how many of you would say that it's very rare that you get a time of quiet and solitude? Raise your hand. If you have that where you're people very quick, a lot of you guys to raise, you're like, I don't have, and if you have kids, your hand will just be raised forever, except you're tired, so you probably didn't even raise your hand. You're just trying to get there, and I get it. I totally understand. You guys online, drop some emojis there and let us know. I get it. We have moments where it's very hard to be quiet. But I want to walk through this little exercise. In our small groups this week, our small group studies study what we're going to be learning about the coming week. In our small group studies, we looked at the topic of reputation, not the Taylor Swift song, reputation, and how we are portrayed to other people and what people think of us. Now, in a moment, there's going to be some slides that I'm going to bring up on the screen. These people are very polarizing. Over the years, some of these people have hit the top 100 most influential people within culture. Some of them may draw a visceral response from you. Some of them may anger you. Some of them you may be very excited about. But I would ask this. We're going to spend about 10 to 15 seconds on each of these slides that have a handful of people on them. And I would ask that you not say anything out loud or groan or get celebratory, but that you would think simply, because every one of us has a reputation that follows us, where does their reputation land with me? You guys ready? All right. You guys, am I allowed to talk now? Am I not allowed to talk? And so here we go. Let's take a look. Now, how many of you, by show of hands, with any of those individuals, that you had a distinct response, good or bad, to one or more of those people? Raise your hand. Almost every single one of us. I would venture to say that as we see some of these people, and if you're on the younger side, some of those people may be new to you. If you're on the older side, again, some of those people may be new to you. But every single one of those people are very polarizing in nature for one or more of the things that they believe, that they do, that they say. I want to venture back to one in particular, right down here. For those of you guys who are younger, who may not have, stayed awake during history class, this is Rosa Parks. Now, Rosa Parks is an individual that, for many people during her time, was extremely polarizing. Now, you and I may say that we'll know as we've looked through history, we're thankful for what Rosa Parks did and what happened during that time where she stood up for people of color and those that are marginalized, to be able to say, listen, we are not going to move in this way any longer, and so I'm going to sit wherever I please. But during that time, there were people that would say that Rosa Parks was a criminal, that she was absolutely doing the wrong thing, and how dare you? Know your place. For others, they would say that her reputation that carried and went by her, that she was a hero, that she stood up for those that weren't able to stand up for themselves. But as we look in hindsight, I don't think that anyone would look back and go, you know what? We think that Rosa Parks had really bad character. You see, reputation can vary in many degrees depending on how you look at an individual. But character is what truly matters. See, this last week as our small group studied, they studied about reputation and how are we perceived and how we look. And I would say that that's a part and it needs to be looked at. But deep down at your core, if we're going to be a church for the city, our character is what truly should be setting the tone. Abraham Lincoln put it this way when he said, character is like a tree and reputation is like a shadow. The shadow is what we think of it. The tree, well, it's the real thing. Coach John Wooden, who I would argue is one of the best coaches to ever be a part of the game of basketball, put it this way. He said, be more concerned with your character than your reputation, because your character is what you really are, while your reputation is merely what others think you are. You see, many men and women have done some things that are very polarizing in culture. That doesn't make them villains or heroes. What it really boils down to is, where is your character? Because if we're going to be church for the city, we need to be men and women who follow Jesus in such a way that it would speak volumes out of our character on how we impact and move through our culture and our city. And if you don't get anything else, my prayer is that you hear this. This is our big idea for today, that when you walk, talk, and work and love like Jesus, your character will point people to God. Now, originally, when I walked through this and we started formulating today's message, we looked through our series of 8 weeks, as we kind of wrap it up and tie a bow on it, I had, when you walk, talk, and love like Jesus, your character will point to people, and I skipped over and did not add work. But what our staff has seen in some of the questions and in some of the counseling appointments that we've been a part of with people is one of the biggest questions over the last 2 years that people have asked who claim faith is, I'm really trying on the walking and talking part and the loving part. I don't know what my purpose is when it comes to my work. I'm with those people sometimes, for many of us, more often than we are with our own families. And so how is it that I'm supposed to walk this out because I don't really like my job? Or I'm not sure if I even serve a purpose in that in the grander scheme of God's plan. And I would encourage you that your work is vital. And we've said this before, that Christians should be the stellar people within the workplace, people that raise the bar, people that go above and beyond, that don't look at the minimum requirements, but go, I want to show people what it means to truly live this out. So that other people go, man, you're working hard, you're making us look bad. Man, I just really love my job. I really love being a part of this. That in our walk, talk, work, and love, that we would act like Jesus, and that character will point people that direction. And this guy, Paul, that we've been looking at, is he started this church that we've been reading through this letter that he wrote, because he said, man, you guys are doing great. Here's some ways you're not doing great. He tried to kind of wrap this up in a beautiful way, and it's over in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. If you have a Bible, you could turn over there. If you don't have a Bible, we give them for free at the Get Connected table in the lobby, and every week at forefrontchurch.info, there's a notes section there. Stop by there, just click on the notes tab. Everything we're talking about is there. Fill in notes, swipe all the way to the bottom. You can email that back to yourself to kind of remember what you've been learning and how that's going. In this passage, before we jump into it, Paul's talking about how we act, and he starts talking about food and eating. And which may sound a little weird. You go like, following Jesus, what does that have to do with eating and drinking stuff? And we're going to get to that in a second. But he notes this before he gets to the passage we're going to look at in chapter 10, verse 31. He says, imagine if you're in the market. So we're just going to say the grocery store. We were there just last week, virtually talking about stuff and all the turkey stuff. He said, imagine you're going to the grocery store or the market. You know what? There's going to be things that you can eat and drink. Don't let your conscience like weigh you down. Eat and enjoy. You have the freedom to do so. He said, but imagine if you've been invited over to somebody's house and you're eating and you're just enjoying the meal, And then somebody in the meal goes, wait a second. That meat that we're about to eat, it was used in a sacrifice to idols. And I'm really taking offense by that. For some of us, we'd go, who cares? It's just meat. Like, I'm just trying to eat. I'm just trying to enjoy my meal. He said, listen, I know that you have the freedom to do that, but I want you to concede for the greater good and the conscience of that person who's unsettled by it. I want you to not eat it for them, not for yourself, so that you can honor them and honor God in the process. Make it not about you, but about others, which then leads us to the passage right after this in verse 31 and following. It says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Maybe you've been around church a little bit and you've heard this passage and you go, oh yeah, I've read this. And what I've heard people talk about this is, so whether you eat or drink or do it all to the glory of God, they go, this is why we pray for our meal. And I go, that's not at all what this is actually talking about. This is why context matters. Because all the verses before it talk about, hey, if you're in an instance where somebody's taking offense, even when it comes to food, you don't cause a fuss, don't make a fight, just concede. Because it's better to concede even if someone believes or doesn't believe, so that you can honor God in them and be able to be a bridge for them in love and in hope and in generosity and in care for them. That's why he follows up, Paul, as he says this. So do not cause anyone to stumble, whether Jews or Greeks or the church of God. He said, listen, if they believe something different than you, if they don't believe at all, if they're a part of the church, he said, listen, continues on, even as I try to please everyone in every way. And we're like, whoa, Paul, I'm going to need you to pump the brakes a bit, because that seems very daunting. I can't even please the 3 kids that are in my house. I ask them what they want to eat. They give me 3 different things. I give them one meal that I want, and no, it's a hunger strike. Paul, how am I going to then go out into my job, into my neighborhood, into everything, and try to please everyone every way? Paul, that's impossible. And then he turns it to himself. He said, for I am not seeking my own good, but the good of many, so that they may be what? Saved. What Paul's saying here is, listen, it's not about me. If he were speaking to you, he would say it's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the other person. And so, when we start to pull this back a bit, the big question we ask is, well, what does this look like? And I would say right on the doorstep of Thanksgiving, this couldn't be more applicable. And so I want to walk through a little exercise that would help us see this a little more clearly. How many of you are probably going to sit around a table with somebody that doesn't agree with what you believe and you think different? Yeah. I saw some hands go up faster than others there. You're like, yeah. If they're sitting beside you, that's not the time to hash this out, okay? And so, but for many people, they're going to sit around a table with relatives and friends and people who think very differently than them. And so I want to walk us through this, because when we talk about the Bible, when we talk about the Word of God, these letters that are written to people, to us, to help us understand God more, if we know all the verses but we can't put it into practice, it does nothing. And so for us, our hope is, how do we prepare Sunday for what's going to happen Monday, Thursday, along the way? And so if we were to kind of walk this out, here's kind of what it would look like. Let's take person A at the table. Person A loves Jesus. They kind of grew up in the church, all of that. Person A has a political bent more towards not conservative, definitely more liberal in nature. Very much in social justice, all of these things, but loves Jesus. And so they're there, they're excited for Thanksgiving. And then we have person B. Person B also loves Jesus. They go to church regularly. They have tried their best to lead themselves, their family, etc. Person B leans more towards the conservative side. and has a lot of leanings that way. Still loves people and expects people, to work hard and earn a living and all these things. Person A and B have Jesus in common and nothing else. And so they're going to be there, but they're not done. You see, then we have person C and person D. Person C and D are dating. They just moved in together recently, and they're bringing to the table here that even though person A and B love Jesus and would probably both take at this point a more conservative view of how this should have played out. Person C grew up in church a little bit, but doesn't really go much anymore, isn't sure about all of that. And as they started dating, person D has said, I don't believe in God, but we'll work this out together along the way. And they're bringing news that they just found out that they're expecting. And so imagine for yourself, I just want to play this out a bit. Imagine for yourself what this conversation would look like between A, B, C, who isn't unsure, D, who's definitely not claiming faith, if the topic of abortion comes up. What would happen if during the meal and they're just eating the turkey, pash the taters, you put corn in your potatoes, villain, I'm camp, pile it on. Then all of a sudden conversation shifts to LGBTQ rights and movement. Then it starts to shift to immigration and border walls. And then just about purity in general. Do you think those conversations are going to go really well? No. I mean, we've seen this. And we jokingly poke fun a bit at the fact that we like to create our own echo chambers. That's natural to do that. But then what if we entered in a fifth person that claimed faith but started stirring the pot a bit? You see, there's a responsibility for person A and B to make every ounce of effort to care for person C and D, regardless of what this new person has said in the mix. Well, wait a second, Jason. You don't understand. Person B has convictions and person A has convictions. And I need to make those convictions known if I'm person A or if I'm person B. Jason, you don't understand the world that we live in. And I would say I believe that I do. And God has already talked about it through his servant Paul to the Corinthian Church. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Yeah, you might pray before the meal, but what are you doing to care for? And I would say the most important, everyone is loved by God and made by the image of God. But if you're a believer in the room, the person that's most important to care for is person D. That everything that you say and do would be, how do I look through their lens? You say, but Jason, I just have a lot of beliefs and, I have a lot of things that weigh heavily on my heart. And I'd say that's beautiful. But let's listen to the words of Mark Yarhouse. He shares, if you're a believer, don't allow the doctrinal positions that you hold to trump personhood. Really hear that. Don't allow the doctrinal positions that you hold trump personhood. If your doctrine and belief is blocking you from seeing other people in the room as a child of God, that's a problem. The moment we can agree to disagree. I had somebody who stood out after first service. They said, we were in small group with them and we loved them. We would never vote the way they would. I said, but we have a really great friendship. I go, that's awesome. They go, but the person said, I'm going home, and at Thanksgiving, it's going to get real. Because we have people who are all over the place politically. He said, we even have people in my family where we're going that don't like people of different ethnicities. And I know that and he talked about a person in their family who's bringing somebody who is different ethnically than the rest of the family. He said, it's not going to go well. I said, all right. So this played out in a real life conversation. It's going to play out Thursday. I said, as a believer, it is your job when that person walks in and starts to look down on person D that you lovingly say, hey, can we talk? You walk over and say, I love you, but you are wrong. And you cannot do that to them or to anybody else because you claim that they're made in the image of God. So if I knew them well enough, I'd say, so start acting like it. And so, Paul would share the very same sentiment. What does he say? For I am not seeking my own good, because that conversation's going to be hard. I'm not seeking to be right about whatever situation's going on in, starting to live together or a kid before marriage or all these things. That's person B and person A. We want to love you like Jesus, not like a position that we need to be right about. And so we're going to step back. But if somebody jumps in to be unkind, to be unloving, not seeking my own good, but the good of many so that they may be saved. If the fifth person walks in and they love Jesus and they're saved, they're going to go to heaven, tell them the truth, get them to stop. They may never speak to you again. I want you to know if you do this in a loving way, whether they speak to you or not is not the concern. The concern are these two people right here. What is their impression of God, of faith, of Jesus, and of love? Because if you say nothing, you've done something. It just isn't what Jesus would do. You see, when we walk and talk and work and love like Jesus, your character will point people to God. But we feel sometimes like we can't do that. Maybe you feel inept. Maybe you feel like you aren't equipped to move in that way. I want to encourage you with very quickly, three things that Jesus makes true about your life. And this is the question I get from people. What does Jesus make true about my life? And it covers past, present, and future. The first is this, is that Jesus covers your past. Here's the only problem. Satan tries to leverage it. That Jesus went to the cross to pay for everybody. That debt is paid. When you go to dinner and the waiter or waitress comes back and they say someone is taking care of your check and you're like, oh, what in the world? If you've ever had that happen, it's one of those things you're like, whoa, that's awesome because you're expecting to pay for it. And when it's paid for, the amount of just gratitude and relief, God does that on an eternal cosmic scale through Jesus for you and I. Covers your past. Satan tries to leverage it. This is what, for as high as the heavens above the earth, so great is for the love of those, his love for those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far he has removed our transgressions from us. And there will be people in your life, as you begin to watch change, people who will look in and try to remind them of who they used to be. You'll be people in your life who, as you begin to change, who try to continually remind you who you used to be. You just get to lovingly look at them and go, Jesus doesn't condemn me anymore. Why are you? You don't get to play that role. That's not my job anymore. He covered my past. Not only that, Jesus believes in you right now, but Satan is going to lie to you. But God demonstrates his own love for us that while we were still what? Sinners. Now, if that strikes and you're like, whoa, Jason, this is my first time here. How dare you call me a sinner? All right, I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. We could do this all day long. We're all sinners. And if you're unsure about that and you say you're not, we jokingly say you're also a liar and a sinner, so double whammy. And I say that just like, I say that tongue in cheek because we need to be self-aware enough to know that none of us have arrived. From the little kid that doesn't need to be taught to stick things in the outlet because we have an inclination to do what we want, to the 90-year-old in the room who says, I'm not going to change because I'm old. Every single one of us has fallen short of perfection. And God said, I believe in you right now, in that brokenness. I'm going to send Jesus for you in that moment. But Satan will just step on in. Imagine this person here. Man, I'm hearing some good things and whatever, and the fifth person walks in. Says the things that are so heartbreaking. And A and B don't stand up. Oh, guess that's how I'm always going to be viewed, man. Because A and B didn't speak up for what was true. Because there is a time to say what needs to be said so that men and women can experience the grace and love of God. And when you and I encounter Jesus, he believes in you right now, not a future version of you, right now. But not only that, Jesus writes your future. But if you're not careful, you don't listen, Satan will continue to reread your past. And it'll keep coming up in that negative self-talk, and I'm not good enough, and I can't do this. That's why I love this passage. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. See, God is the one in control of your life, not you. And when you and I look and say, God, you're in control, God, I'm going to trust you, then this interaction doesn't take any strength. Because if something is going wrong in someone's life, we love them. If someone steps in and is hurtful, we help correct them. Because it is not about me, it's not about me, it's about them. I want to see them experience love and grace, no matter where I fall on any issue, period, goodbye. Because it's not about you and I. And you can do this with your character when you walk, talk, and work and love like Jesus. Your character will point people to God. So if you're a believer this morning, my question is, where are you pointing people? Because this week you're going to experience quite a few individuals who don't always look, act, talk, vote, think, and believe like you do. But how will you care for them so that they can see Jesus through you? Because it's a beautiful thing when you can. For those of you who are maybe sitting in seat C and D, that's you. I'm sorry for men and women who have acted in A and B unkind to you. That is not every believer. But I can tell you that Jesus is greater than anything that they've done to wound you. And you can have a fresh start today. That's a church for the city.
Thanks for tuning in to the Forefront Church video podcast. Our hope and prayer is that this has left you encouraged and challenged you in your faith. And you might have some questions and some ways that you want to figure this out, and we want to help with that. Head over to forefrontchurch.info, and there's a couple different ways that you can connect. Click the Connect tab and let us know how we can be praying for you, or a staff member can be contacting you this week. Maybe you have just been encouraged by this and want to support the ministry here at Forefront Church. You can click the Giving tab, as well as other tabs that are in there to help you along in your journey with God. And so we're thankful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we cannot wait to see you again here online on the video podcast. We love you, and we'll see you then.